Subramaniam, faculty members, and my dear cadets. Firstly, a very, very good afternoon. And it's my privilege that I was invited today as the chief guest. Heartiest congratulations to batch number 19 of GME on passing out. It reminds me of my days as a pre-C cadet when I passed out. I mean, I was ecstatic that I actually passed. So starts from there. So heartiest congratulations there. Rao sir, one correction that you keep telling the boys that slowly tum chief engineer ban jayega. Please, that has to change now. Quickly chief engineer bano. The market is really bad, and trust me, we are desperate for chief engineers. Master tab bhi mil jata hai. Chief engineer milna mushkil hai. No disrespect to the cadets. I mean, the thing is that, unfortunately on the engineering side, there's a talent pipeline that you have. I mean, whether it be on the deck side, you become deck cadets, you become third officers, you become second officers, chief officers, subsequently masters. Similarly, on the engine side, you start off as a junior engineer, then you become third engineer, second engineer, and then chief engineer. But unfortunately, with ships being UMS and the safe manning certificate clearly stating that you only require one chief engineer, one second engineer, and one watchkeeping engineer. So that talent pipeline per se breaks for the engineering side. But I'm glad to say in the last couple of years, owners have taken cognizance of this fact that if they expect their own boys to be chief engineers on board ships, they need to make more and more berths for fourth engineers. And in the last 2 years, we've seen a lot of ship owners making sure that every ship of theirs has fourth engineer. So engineers, now good news for you. The continuity of job happens over there. Now let's start with my association with HIMT. Well, I've been associated with HIMT ever since 1999, when Sir had very humble beginnings in Purushavakkam. I, that time, was giving my second mate, so I had to do the PSSR course that started then. And I did my course at HIMT at that time at Purushavakkam. And I think there's no need to further say that from such humble beginnings, if we are standing here today in this campus, where seated in front of me are 300 plus cadets that I heard of, that itself speaks about the kind of dedication, the kind of commitment that Mr. Vakil has always had towards the industry, towards training, towards development of seafarers. And I think it is high time that we give him a big hand for the foresight that he had to start there and come here. And as you're aware, they read my biodata, which was more like a menu card. So I'm involved in a lot of industry forums where also Mr. Sanjeev Vakil is involved. And in the industry, in the administration, his views, his suggestions are taken very, very seriously because of the kind of commitment that he has had in the last years towards maritime education. So thank you, sir, for that. So yeah, my association with HIMT started in 1999. I was supposed to come down. I'm not very comfortable going out for passing out parades and things like that. But I committed to Mr. Vakil, considering the long relationship that we have, that I would come down. This was before COVID, and then COVID happened, and one thing led to the other. And so anyways, I'm just glad that I could make it this time. Thank you, sir, for having me here. Again, coming to the relationship between BSM and HIMT. This was long time back, much before I became managing director. I was a deputy director, and that was when I was going to go and interview some cadets for selection into BSM. And it so happened, or was it my bad luck, I bumped into my CEO and he asked me, where the hell are you going? So I said, sir, I'm going to go and select cadets. He said, oh, very good, come sit down. And he was a person who used to read a lot of Mahabharata and Ramayana and all that, So, okay, tell me, when you are going for selection, what are you going to go and select? What are you looking at selecting? So I said, sir, a professional, good future cadet for the company. He said, wrong. Then I racked my brain and I said, no, I know what answer he's looking at. So I said, sir, our future masters and chief engineers. He said, wrong. I said, no, I didn't know what to say. So he said, you're going to go and select cadets without knowing what you're going to select. I said, sir, I'm sorry, I thought I gave the right answer. He said, no, you gave the wrong answer. You are going to go and select the future managing directors, the future CEOs of Bernard Schulte. And it takes me pride in saying that today in our organization, across the globe, majority of our superintendents, a lot of key people sitting in key places are people who joined us as cadets and today are decision makers in the organization. So for me, when I was given this task to make sure that we are selecting the future decision makers of Bernard Schulte, I needed to make sure that we are selecting them from the right place. That means they have the right exposure, they have the right knowledge, in the sense knowledge imparted to them, and also they are exposed to international culture, because we are a foreign shipping company. And that is when I sat down. I had a list of all the training institutes, what we say are grade A institutes. Now, one is, of course, you all know that there is a CIP that is carried out by the Director General of Shipping. But also a couple of years back, there was a joint exercise that was carried out by FOSMA and MASA, which are associations of foreign companies, where we did our own audits of all the training institutes, and we came out with a list of academies, which we told our member lines, these are the top academies here in India, and of course it is left up to the member lines whether they would like to select cadets from there. And again, South India has been a very strong forte for engineers. Traditionally, South India has produced the best engineers in the maritime industry. So that is when we came to HIMT and we said, okay, we are going to partner up with HIMT and we are going to have our cadets pre-selected prior joining with HIMT and by BSM, and they would be given sponsorship letter assuring them placement in BSM after successful training in HIMT. And today we consider HIMT not only as an institute but also our knowledge partner, because it started with the pre-sea training, then came COVID. 2.5 years of our life that we want to forget but cannot ever forget. And to make things better, I was told in January 2021 that I have to take over 4 ships which are covered under the IGF code, which is basically ships that use. And I remember calling up Mr. Sanjeev Vakil and saying, sir, do you have the simulator? Yes. Said, sir, can you please get the approval? He's saying, are you sure? What batches are we looking at? I said, sir, I have to take over 4 ships. We need the basic and advanced IGF training done. And hats off to him. After that conversation, he got the DG approval. Then, of course, we have a lot of seafarers who have UK certificates. While, just imagine how this industry works. While in India, we had an institute like HIMT that ran to DG shipping during peak COVID times. That was when the second wave started. And got approvals to run the IGF training. We had Indian nationals who had UK certificate of competencies. And we approached MCA in UK and asked them whether where can the IGF course be conducted in UK? And the only reply from MCA that came at that time was, sorry, no institute is running because IGF training, physical presence is required for the practical training. Again, during peak of COVID, HIMT was the institute that ran the courses, virtually online for theory. Practical training had to be done physically. Despite the COVID crisis, they made it happen. And thanks to HIMT, sir, thank you very much. We took over the 4 ships successfully. Now, coming back to Precy, you all have, I've been through the infrastructure today. I heard about it. My colleagues have been here. They told me about it, but I was not prepared to what I saw today. You've got state-of-the-art infrastructure over here and excellent campus, facilities, faculty that has got loads of experience. I heard wonderful things that were spoken about the faculty. I've met the faculty. So when Mr. Vakil was talking to you about being brand ambassadors, you're brand ambassadors first for yourself and your family. Then you're brand ambassador of your country. Then you're a brand ambassador of the institute and the company that you're working for. So you need to make your family, yourself, your family, India proud that you are there representing them in an international forum. And I cannot thank the Indian seafarers enough, because during the COVID crisis, the country or the seafarers who came across as being the most resilient, understanding, and professional were the Indian seafarers. I do not mince words in saying that I feel sorry that when the COVID crisis started, the international community forgot that there was a sect of people called seafarers, because they were left on board the ship with all international borders being shut, with them having no access to shore leave, no access to come back home to their families. Hats off to their families, despite knowing that their beloved husband, wife, brother, sister, whoever is there on board the ship is not able to come back home. The families were still resilient, supporting them emotionally while they were stuck on board ships. While the rest of the world seafarers started creating nuisance, our Indian seafarers understood what the situation was. The industry, namely the Government of India, that is Director General of Shipping, Government of India, the shipping associations, the unions, the MTIs, all stuck together, and we made a promise to our seafarers that we'll bring them back home. And India was the first country to set an example to the international community that despite airspace being shut, how we managed to get our seafarers back. And that was all because everybody united. It wasn't a single company, it wasn't a single organization, it wasn't a single entity. Everybody joined hands together, including Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Civil Aviation, and we kept it going. At the same time, MTIs, as you know, ships have to run. And more ships in the last 2 years are coming into the Indian manning market. Last year was the Chinese crisis, where the Chinese outsold themselves, became very demanding. It reached a point where Chinese owners themselves decided not to have Chinese seafarers. They had to be replaced by Indians. This year, unfortunately, you know what is happening in Ukraine. The Russia-Ukraine conflict is continuing. And as you are aware, 14.5% of the seafaring force on merchant ships are from Russia and Ukraine. There's embargo on Russians. You cannot pay them salaries. Ukrainians want to go back home. They don't know where their families are, whether they're in Romania, whether they're in Poland or somewhere else. So all these all the manning pressure is coming here in the Indian market. So despite the COVID crisis, the MTIs found ways to keep the pre-C training going. One example is HIMT. You had online training, and then in November, you all started your practical training here. Again, it is because of our MTIs that the manning market survives over here in India. So we need to appreciate the effort that have been put in by maritime training institutions such as HIMT during the COVID crisis. I know I've bored you all enough. Last but not the least, before I leave the stage, I always ask my father one thing. My father was a chief engineer out at sea. He was a Lloyd surveyor. God bless his soul, I learned a lot from him. So I would be like, Dad, what is more important on the ship? I think deck side, because I was on the deck side. Deck side is more important than the engine side. And there's always that conflict, no? Deck engine, which is more important? So my father turned around and said, son, in your body, what is more important, your brain or your heart? I said, sorry, one cannot work without the other. He said, same. That's what a ship is. The engine is the heart, the deck is the brain. They both need to work together for a ship to work perfectly. Thank you once again. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words, and I'm certain